Oh, hello, and welcome to Basic Folk. This is a podcast where we have honest conversations with folk musicians. I'm your host, Cindy Howes. Very pleased to be with you, and once again, going to remind you that we do have some Basic Folk beanies for sale still. There are still a couple left. They are hand-knit by my mom, and they have a Basic Folk label on them. You can see them at my website, cindyhouse.net. Today on the podcast, we have another interview conducted at the Folk Alliance International Conference that took place in New Orleans a few weeks back. I had the opportunity to sit down with Montreal's Elisapie, an incredible person and really great musician who was born in Salluit, Quebec, into the Inuit community. And she grew up in this little Arctic village in the north, surrounded by the sad truth of what had happened to the generations before her when white settlers forced these semi-nomadic Inuit people to settle into one area. And we kind of talk about what that looked like and what that meant for her and her family. Elisapie was born to a single mother who adopted her out to other family members who could not have their own children. So she grew up with her birth mother living kind of right around the corner, but was not close to her until she was older. In our wonderful conversation, she talks about being inspired by her musician uncle and also the opportunity to perform with his very popular band at a young age. She also talks about leaving Salluit for Montreal and how she's always had a difficult time with the fact that she left. Her new album, Runaway Girl, addresses those issues and more. She has this song dedicated to her birth mother that she was able to perform live in concert with her mother in the audience, and she shares that special moment as well as talking about the song she wrote about connecting with and understanding men, which gets very interesting. I hope you enjoy our conversation and learn something about this special person. Let's share a song from her latest album, The Ballad of the Runaway Girl, and then we'll get to our conversation with Elisapie on Basic Folk.
Take me to the rodeo and I'll be kind. Way past the mountains with all the fountains of youth. Take me to my little island, I'll be silent all summer. From my room I'll watch the moon go under. Oh, yaddy, 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 yada.
Elisapie, thank you so much for talking to me. You were born in a little Arctic village in the north. Is it Salluit, Quebec, into the Inuit community? And I know that this is a very big question, but for those who are not familiar, can you kind of like set the scene for what your hometown is like?
Yes. Well, if you think about it, as you know, Inuit lived in the winter in snow houses, what we call igloos. So I was born in late 70s, and let's say not even 20 years before that, my little village was wintertime. People lived in snow houses. So if you think about that, it's so not long ago, right? So we had been, when the missionaries arrived, when the white people finally did make it all the way up there in Salluit or in northern or the Arctic, they were very, very, I guess, very smart in trying to find a way to get these supposedly savages to be more like them, to be so they took so many things away, anything that was musically like ritual ceremonies. They slowly, when they converted them to the Christian world, well, they had to take all these very special meaningful things like throat singing, for example, or the drums for indigenous First Nations people. So it's a little village that has gone from extreme changes in so little time. And also we were semi-nomads. So my village, Salluit, wasn't really a village. it was just a summer camp, or because we would move according to the seasons, right? So yeah, I'd say in the maybe 50s where we had to stay and not move anymore, because they built the Hudson Bay Company trading post, a store, and then the federal people arrived and said, your kids have to go to school now. So we didn't build our village ourselves. We were forced to stay put and not move anymore. So that's how it all started. And I think that's where all problems started, because it's not really adapting to our environment to be like that. So yeah, my village went from very small group of people to 1,400 now, maybe 1,500. Of course, it's all Inuit community. We speak the language. We still go hunting. We still do many traditional things, but we do have also very modern things. We can listen to your podcasts, and we have internet. So it's like
4G.
It's like any other town except it's the Arctic, and we
Yeah.
have no trees. And we have
So, in my research, it kind of seemed like the missionaries wanted everybody to live in the same place so that the kids could go to school. Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
well, the federal government mainly worked on trying to get people to. They started from, saying to the parents, okay, you guys have to stop moving, because your kids have to go to school because we built a school for you. And if you don't want to do that, well, you're not going to have your, your government allowance that, to be part of Canadian,
Yeah.
So, yeah, and the missionaries, well, they did so many other things, they just converted these very wonderful, spiritual, very connected to, the spirit world. Well, that slowly was put aside, and we became very, we tried living in this square view, which is not round, which is not free, which is not vast. So
Oppressive.
yeah, very oppressive. But I can recognize some beauty in it because, of course, I would go to church every Sunday morning, and then that's when I learned to sing, and I loved singing. So, I mean, Jesus was a hippie, and I thought, he was great, and he loved people, and he showed people to love each other. That part I can totally understand, but the rest of it is really, for me, real bullshit, because how can you, I mean, it's like saying your beliefs are not that great, so put them aside. This is like millennial beliefs, this is like so connected to everything, to the nature. So slowly we are getting curious. Young people are like, well, okay, so what is really our, spirituality, our true identity? So it's really interesting to be hearing young people raising questions and challenging, their parents, and saying, well, you say you're this and your beliefs and you're Christian, but actually it's kind of, can we try to, bind them and go get good things from our culture or traditions?
It sounds like I read this phrase that you use called intergenerational trauma when it comes to like how your parents' generation was able to cope with this versus how your generation and generations after you cope with it. Can you talk a little bit more about that trauma and how the different generations are dealing with it?
Yeah. It's very complicated, but it's getting very clear to us as Indigenous people that all the silence, all the confusion, or all the silence that our parents carried in them when they raised us was not because they are Inuit, humble, quiet people and they just take shit. It's really not that. We are realizing it's because they were so forced and made to believe that they were less and that their opinions don't really matter. So slowly, they were like, they learned to numb themselves, because they didn't have the support. For example, my uncles, when they were kids, sent off to residential schools. I mean, it's the horror stories. If you want to learn more about it, just Google residential schools with like indigenous people, how they were treated. They were treated like animals, as if these are beautiful, innocent children. So these people went through such traumatic experience where they did not have support because they were sent off for the year and they would only come home in the summer. And then at the beginning, I guess what they tried to do is try to, give an indication of how they were feeling, how they were not well treated, but it didn't really, they couldn't really do that because they were not going to be protected anywhere. They were going to be sent off again when August arrives. So they learned to just be like, okay, let me just numb myself because it's going to be easier.
Right.
Because, it's not only taking away their language, it's really taking away their pride and their spirit, innocence. I mean, so I think a lot of people are still stuck there. It's like they haven't
woken up.
They haven't experience what I experience is, I'm a teenager and I go to an adult, I become a mother, I become, mature. So I have, but these guys were so dramatized that it's like they're stuck there, even though they're adults. So that's...
Have you heard of the phrase arrested development?
Yeah,
That's
I've heard.
kind of what it sounds like.
Yeah, it's very sad. But at the same time, their spirit is so powerful. So once you talk to them, let's say for my uncle, I think humor in Inuit world, indigenous world, really saved us because and also being people who live in the present. I mean, that's all we can do. That's all we know how to live is to be in the moment, because the nature is so wild and so harsh that we couldn't really think about tomorrow, let alone the afternoon, right? And we're also told not to be in the past, to be in the moment. So I think that's a very beautiful gift that we have or else I think many people would be dead right now, and which is happening also for the young kids. But yeah, so it's interesting to talk about these people because they are our base, they're like my uncles, my parents. So they don't really want to talk yet about these things because it's so scary and because but it's starting to happen.
Yeah.
People are starting to do more healing journeys and they're aware that we are there for them. Finally, and they're like, so what happened to me was wrong.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
All right. I want to come back to more about the Inuit story because it's just so complex. But I'd like to talk about your story. You were born to a single mother who had to make the decision to put you up for adoption. What was happening at the time for her? You said it was the late 70s where she would make that choice.
Her mother, my grandmother, who I was named after, Akumalik, she said, you already have children. I think if ever you have another baby, you should, give it as a gift to our third cousin who can't bear children. So the year I was born is also the year that few months before my grandmother had died. So, of course, she had to honor, her wish. So when she got pregnant, then I was given to her third cousin on the spot. Like, I was born and I was given. It's as simple as that.
She wasn't in your life as a child.
She was in my life because she was like 3 streets, near my house. And also for Inuit, it's non-taboo to say, okay, I'm your biological mother. We actually have a name for that mother. It's not biological mother. It's called pukuluk. It means little carrier, little bag. So, like, I know many people who have pukul. Oh, that's her pukuluk. So it means it's her, the one who carried her, you know, just to distinct that she's not the mother, she's the carrier. You know what I mean? So it's a very special thing. So ever since I can remember, I was told, "Oh, that's your pukuluk." I would see her on the street.
Did you have a relationship with her?
I developed a really great relationship with her over, like, especially when I got to be preteen, teenager, when I'm old enough to kind of decide what I want to do, I guess. Naturally, that's apparently what happens is the adopted child slowly start being more present to the biological family. Because we're all in small little villages, so that's pretty much how it happens. We kind of go back naturally to, and we're curious, of course, and it was because this is a very strong family, my biological side, because my grandfather was this very strong leader, very traditional. As to my upbringing with my adopted parents, who were like elderly, very humble, not very loud, and very, simple. So I was always caught between those two worlds, which is interesting, but so confusing at times. I'm like, yeah, I'm strong, but no, I'm so much more. Okay, it's like
Such a duality.
yeah, and I carry those every day. I'm like, I can go from super like, and then I can be super loud and proud, and then I can be like, no, I'm just chilling with Yeah, it's weird, but yeah, I have good relationship with her now. Yeah.
Where was music for you in your young life? What were you listening to, and who was bringing you the music that was resonating?
I mean, of course, like a lot of country music. Inuit love country music, folk music. But of course, as a teenager, I would, Tiffany was definitely my hero. Debbie Gibson to, yeah. Jewel. I mean, I wanted to be Jewel, her songwriting. I really, because I didn't know English until I was maybe in my teenage years. Through music, I really, learned to speak and appreciate, speaking English. So, and then I got to really liking, like Metallica, because I was a radio host too, right? So I would play all sorts of. So it's a very extremes, very pop to very like mainstream, like what my friends were listening to. I was always part of the boys, so Metallica and all those. And then a little bit later on in my teenage years, I discovered some oldies, like of course Bob Dylan, Neil Young, anything that was like the 70s, Willie Thrasher. So I've been kind of stuck there for a little while. Yeah, I'm more Vashti Buyan, all these Nick Drake, all this really. I don't know. I
It's
like
so
the
funny
70s,
because
yeah.
in watching your set last night, you could hear those like more American folk. You could also hear the Metallica.
Yeah, that kind of edginess.
Yeah.
It's always,
I was
for
like,
sure.
wow, I don't know if all these folk fans can.
Yeah, I know.
No, people were into it. It was cool.
Yeah, and then we also decided, do we want to try to adapt to the folk scene? And I'm like, I think it's not just power ballads. Like sometimes we have it's very
dynamic.
varied. Yeah, dynamic.
Seems
Yeah,
very
it
dynamic,
has to be dynamic. Yeah.
How about when you started playing instruments and singing? What was that like for you? You mentioned the church.
Yeah,
Going to church
yeah.
made you sing.
Well, there was very little, but my uncle was definitely the rock star in my town because he wrote a song called "The Ballad of the Runaway Girl." And when they were in residential schools, all these kids like Willie Thrasher, everybody that I know that I love, they were all in the same high school, you know, and they formed many bands between them. These are like from Nunavik, Nunavut, Arctic kids, all musicians that we know now. They were all making music, you know, 60s, 70s. So it was really important. So he's always been part of my life, and he was my Inuit teacher. And I think at one point he realized that I was singing all the time. So one day he said, well, we have a show in Cape Dorset Festival, and it'd be nice if you could do back vocals. I mean, this is like my uncle, like old band, right? So I'm like, oh my.
The dad band.
Yeah, dad band. Yeah, exactly. But very famous in the North. People love them, right? So I'm like, oh my God. And he's like, well, you should come out tonight and see how you feel and go sing. And I was so nervous. And he tells me even now, like, you started singing and you were like, very, like, shy, very. And then an hour later, you were like, it just, and so that's how it started for me. And I was like, oh shit, okay. And the people were like, okay, you're definitely a singer. I didn't realize it for so long because I was doing so many other things. I had my radio show. I worked at the school with the kids who had problems. I did so many things for the community until I left when I was 22 to go to Montreal for school in communications, actually. And I realized, okay, something is like not right. I have to dig, like something's there. And that's when I started writing my first demo. And then from there, it just went to, making my first album with the group Taima. That was not under my name, but we were a duo.
Mm-hmm. That was in like the early 2000s?
Yeah, 2003, something like that. Yeah. So it just started, and that's what I've been doing ever since, which is pretty crazy. Yeah.
You moved to Montreal when you were, did you say 20?
Yeah, 22, something like that. Yeah.
What was it like to leave your home, and how did you process that move?
It was very hard. It was very hard because everybody was like, well, why would you want to leave, And my mother was a little bit ill, started to be ill, and I felt so responsible for everybody, for my mom's well-being.
Were you the only child?
No, we were 3 who had been adopted. I was the oldest. And I also worked at the school with the kids. So there was this very strong, but I felt like I had done everything already at the age of 22. And I'm like, I'm getting so old, I'm so young, and I feel like I've never lived an experience being a youth or being young and I'm like, I have to get out of here. I couldn't breathe anymore, I think I had taken so many responsibilities, and I felt like if I don't leave, then I'm going to be stuck here with all this. So I have to find a way. So I kind of just ran, and I left. And so it was very hard. My mother was very heartbroken. So I decided, okay, I'm leaving on my, and sacrificing the fact that I will never ask for anything, and I have to be on my own because nobody's really gonna, I'm breaking people's heart, so I have to just be strong so for the longest time, that's how I lived. I'm like, oh, it's okay, my needs are not important because I'm just, I felt so guilty.
Like living for other people.
And being in Montreal while people are suffering, or I was like, so yeah, that wasn't great. So my first few years experiences were amazing. I learned a lot, and I realized, oh, you can be an artist. Oh my God, you can make music. Oh my God. I was starving, for that. So of course I took everything, and it was so intense, and I made my album, my film, and I think my antennas were so like, capturing everything, because I was for so long, I didn't you know, I ignored those feelings that I had to want to create. And so when I moved to Montreal, I finally understood what it's all about. But it was very hard also because for the first time in your life, you're being asked, who are you? What are you, like anything
What
that
do you
has
want
to
to
do.
do?
Yeah, or your identity,
Yeah.
Inuit, and you had to like, and I don't know, like
Right.
it was a little bit confusing. Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense to me that that was your mindset, that you were kind of shut off because maybe the adults around you growing up were kind of shut off
Of
in that
course,
way.
of
So
course.
they weren't like tapped into
You're not
their
welcome to
their humanity
feel,
or
to ask questions about.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's okay, all right.
So moving to Montreal,
Mm.
how did that feel to actually start feeling things and doing things for
Or
yourself?
create your feelings or make things, experience things and be like, oh, wow, just that is huge. It's like for a young person, yeah, it was very stimulating, very exciting. Yeah.
So not to like jump ahead
Yeah.
several years, but your latest album is The Runaway Girl. It's about you grappling with the decision to leave. And that was released in 2018.
Yeah.
And it was like 15 or 20 years after you left. So
Yeah.
you've been processing it for a
Yeah.
long time. And now that it's been a couple of years since writing the album and releasing it, where are you with that struggle, and how do you keep connected to your home and your sense of belonging?
Well, I think at one point we have to accept, to sit down and face ourselves. I mean, you kind of have to at one point, especially when it was my fourth album, and I was like, I need to do this now. I need to sit down and stop, like really talk to myself and be honest and go where it hurts, you know. Dig in, and that's what I did, and I decided this album will be a road trip, you know, a spiritual road trip. That's how I saw it. I don't want to plan anything. I don't want to say I want to collaborate with this person or I want to make this kind of music. I just knew where it all started was the song Wolves Don't Live by the Rules by Willie Thrasher. And I was stuck, like just listening to these old songs, and I needed to do that. I was obsessed with that music, as if I was going through my own therapy, you know, and it was amazing. So I cried and cried a lot, and they were finally through these songs, I was finally able to see a little bit of light and be like, okay, now I'm ready. So that's when it started, and I met some people, and I'm like, oh, I really like this guitarist. I'm like, oh, maybe we should work together. And then I want to write something about that. And so I just went naturally where I felt like I had to go. So by doing that, I was allowing myself to learn to trust myself again, you know, and be like, okay, my instincts are back on, and I can trust them.
Gosh, it's so easy to ignore your instincts.
I'm a very instinct.
It's very inconvenient.
Yeah,
instinct.
well, I'm very instinctive in everything I do creatively. That's the only way I know. So it can be kind of scary because I'm so not prepared. I'm so always late because I'm just waiting for, you know, it's chaotic. So sometimes it's not fun, but at the same time, that's the only way I know how to make
in terms
music.
of like creating music.
Yeah. Or this time around, I didn't want to set the road. I just was like, okay, I know I want to go here, which is right here. And then from there, where is it going to lead me? That's how it was making this album. So it's very organic, you know, everything about it is very natural. Yeah, I'm really, yeah. It's
an incredible album.
Thank you.
I wanted to talk about the song Una. Is that how you say it? Okay. that explores your relationship with your biological mother. What's the word again?
Una.
The word for
Pukuluk.
Pukaluk.
Yeah.
Pukaluk.
Pukuluk.
You know, the song. It's my understanding that you were wondering if your mother had that moment of bonding with you as a small child before she gave you up, as you were bonding with your child.
Yeah.
And I think I misunderstood the story. I thought you guys first met after she heard that song live, but
No,
you grew up
we
with
knew,
her in your life. But could you tell that story of her hearing that song for the first time?
Yeah, it was very special. That was a year and a half ago. We had missed each other for some reason. I was in Salluit launching the album in her hometown, in our hometown.
Because you're like a celebrity there.
Yes. So I went to my town, my small town community, and released the album there, which was really amazing. But she had gone to Montreal, so she wasn't able to see the show and heard the song, you know. And I didn't send it to her. I just felt like it's gonna happen naturally. We're just gonna find a way. I'm not gonna push it, right? So when we did our first show in Montreal, a few weeks later or 2 weeks later, she was still there, and then she had asked my sister, her daughter. So apparently she wants to know if is there any tickets left to buy to go to the show.
She wanted you to hook her up.
Yeah, but she also she's ready to buy tickets, and I'm like, oh, what? She's still here? Oh my God. And then this is like the day before our show, which is a very important Montreal show. And I'm like, oh my God, Eva's gonna be there. Like, this is like, I'm already stressed about this show, and then knowing that Eva will get to hear the song in front of I don't know how many people were there, 800? Yeah, maybe 600, 700 people. Like a big...
Wow, big show.
Yeah, a big show for us. And so we start the show, and then when it comes to introducing the song, I said, this is a song I wrote. And I spoke in French, I think. And I said, Eva is here tonight. So, no, I didn't even say Eva is here, but I said something along the line like, this is very special. And, but she was there. I knew where she was standing, but I couldn't really try to look for her. But apparently she was very, very emotional, because it's so powerful with the big sound. This room was just beautiful theater, very, very beautiful. So she came to see me backstage, and everyone was like, oh, that's Eva. That's the famous Eva behind that song. And we're like, hi. She's super friendly. And then we hugged each other, but it was a hug that was maybe 1 minute long, which is very unusual. And why it was longer is because we couldn't face each other. When we were hugging, it was like there was that we were both crying but holding it, so it wasn't overly but it was just something that was done between us. It's only us that felt it. Maybe of course people were so just that, the way she looked at me afterwards, it's like, it was very, we don't really need to say anything about that. It's just, and then I made a video 6 months later interviewing her about that song, and I asked her all these questions, and you can see it online.
Oh, great.
Una. Yeah. Be prepared. It's very, very...
Cry.
Because because it's the first time where we cry it's the first time I learned stuff about my birth.
I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, it's Una. It's good to cry. But people were like, okay, I'm in my office right now, and I'm crying. Everybody was like, oh shit, I can't stop crying.
You need a warning.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Is this song in French?
Inuktitut, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The language of the Inuit.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah, Una. Yeah.
Great. So great.
Yeah.
How did writing that song and maybe even performing it for Eva help you understand or connect to yourself or to your own children?
My God, I didn't realize it. I felt like I had a new life, a new outtake on life. I made peace with myself by accepting that I was vulnerable, and I was able to go to that I always know that I'm vulnerable and I can be very emotional and sensitive, but it's making peace and accepting the image of that little child, it was so unfair what she went through, because she of course wanted to be close to that person that was, that made her. It's so important, but at the same time, I'm like, life is so, like the Inuit world of how we view life is not about you're my possession. You actually belong to the world. You're not my possession. So that spiritual side of it it makes me much more at peace, and I really made peace with that. So I can now say I'm happy about my adoption. This is the life I had to live, and
Right.
but I also accepting to love Eva again, truly, because a few times I was like, actually, I don't even like her. I don't even no, because I so wanted to accept that the bond was broken so long ago. So I was, the last few years were like, oh, whatever. Why do I ask questions about her anyway? I don't care. We don't have the same values anyway. She's whatever.
She's not sitting at home thinking about me.
Yeah, behind that is probably that.
Yeah.
But she was so amazing. One time I said to her, Eva, I'm sorry I've been ignoring you, but I need to go through my things, and one day we'll get to talk, and I can't go into details. And she's like, you know what? It's okay. Do what you have to do, Elisapie. Just that, the way she said it, I'm like, she's trying to teach me a lesson here. She's like, don't push it. Just live what you need, and when it's time for you to go see me, you will. It was so wise, and I'm like, wow. Instead of being like, oh, okay, poor you. And yes, it's like she showed me that she trusts that I will get to a place where I need to go to make peace, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, all right.
Wisely.
Yeah.
Very wise. Can we talk about, so you have a song, and I'm not sure which one it is, so you'll have to help me. You have a song where you look to inspire men and remind them that they are extraordinary. You have this quote, it's kind of long, you're saying, I'm telling them that they are the balance in women's cause. In our history, women have always been close to their families to care for them, while men had the duty to hunt, understand the territory while respecting our rights. Ultimately, at the end of this role that was central to who we were, men lost a part of themselves, and I want to know that it's possible. I want them to know it's possible to have both strength and the kindness of modern men.
That's part of the Arnard, the song I wrote for women. Celebrating, wanting to celebrate the woman as this force, this powerhouse. I think we have a hard time with accepting that, because men have overtaken everything, and they decided anything that's powerful, it's them that are allowed to use that. And they forgot that no, it's like the women have such amazing powers too, power of healing, power of connecting families, connecting the worlds, so I'm like, so not fair. So I needed to write that song about women, and also telling the men to, to pay respect to the woman. Yeah.
It was such an interesting message that, you know, there are songs about women being powerful, but then it also seems like you're making space for men, talking directly to them.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's also because it must be weird being a man, you know? It must be weird because you know, the way things were, it's kind of shifting and they are being reminded, hey, yo, dude, all the time.
Yeah.
Because we're like, okay, because we're expressing ourselves so much. And it must be weird to be a man, even a modern man. It must still feel weird because that space that they had, that privilege they had for so long is no longer being encouraged, you know. It's actually, they're being told, dude, don't be stupid anymore.
Yeah.
Give us space and, you know, make room for us. So it must be interesting.
I sometimes will take a pull quote and use it like on a social media image. And I think that was it. It must be weird being a man.
Yeah, it must be weird being a man.
You are a filmmaker, and you have made a few films, including one that you made in 2003 called If the Weather Permits, which showed the modern life of the Inuit in your home community, which I watched. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I am going to because it was very good. And your voice, you're doing the voiceover. Great.
Yeah, thank you.
How does being a filmmaker inform you as a musician or vice versa?
They go together. I don't really know how to separate them. Being like into documentaries, telling stories and letting people tell stories. And my music, I mean, I sing songs, but really what I'm doing is I'm trying to tell a story. And in between that too, it's very important for me to make what I have to say part of this whole experience of seeing the show. So I think it has to be a good dose of, you know, I can't just be, I could have been a stand-up comedian. I would have loved to, because not being, just because I think life is so funny. We're all such idiots sometimes. I'm like, so, like, we're just trying to be so serious when really we're just a bunch of, it's like we're like kids trying to, you know, we're so vulnerable. Human beings are so vulnerable. And I think there's a lot of fun in there. I think there's a lot of humor that should be more present in our lives, because we're just trying to adapt to life all the time. And except when you live in a farm and it's quiet, or you're out in the country and you have, but you know, people trying to be with humans it's like complicated, right?
Yeah. Even walking down the street.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in New Orleans, where there's a lot of tourists around, walking around, and I'm from a walking city.
Yeah.
And like when I'm walking, I'm like going somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's just even hard to share
Oh
the
my
sidewalk
God. Yeah,
with people.
exactly. So yeah, it's definitely, they go together. They're always gonna go together. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so we do this like kind of fun, silly thing called the lightning round.
Yeah.
Where I'm going to ask you questions that
On the
are
spot?
On the spot.
Okay, cool.
Okay, and they're all about you.
Okay.
So you'll have the
All right.
answers. Okay, you ready? Mm-hmm. Okay. What was the first song you learned on the guitar?
Oh my God, the first song. Oh my God, the first song. It's probably my song. I'm such a horrible guitar player. So a song. I'm trying to think about that now. Jewel, probably, but I was probably very bad at it. Yeah, I'd say Jewel. Yeah.
Do you like lakes or beaches?
Beaches. Okay. Yeah.
What is your karaoke song?
Crazy full of feeling so lonely. I'm crazy full of feeling so Patsy Cline.
It's really good. Do you like dogs or cats?
I like dogs. I'm learning to like cats. Inuit are afraid of cats, so yeah,
Really?
dogs. Yeah, we have no cats. It's like these weird creatures. They're like, dogs are like, you know. But I have a cat now. With
You
the
do?
kids. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
that's interesting. We'll do a whole other episode talking about our cats. What was the first album you bought with your own money?
With my own money? Oh, darn. I don't know if it's Van Halen or something like that.
Jewel.
Yeah, not Jewel. Van Halen, probably. That's
great.
Yeah.
Do you remember your first concert?
My first concert was with my uncle's band when I was a kid, and I walked up the hill, and it was an outdoor concert. It was beautiful. And I was walking with my father, and we just sat, and I was like, I was amazed. Like, yeah, my uncle, Salluit band, they're called.
Oh, that's great. What is your dream collaboration?
Devendra Bernhardt.
That'd be really good.
That would be amazing. PJ Harvey. I mean, yeah, I'm just being very, big. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Are you a morning person or a night owl?
I don't know. It changes all the time. I'm definitely a night owl, depending when. But a morning person, I want to be a morning person. It's so nice. Mornings are so beautiful because it's like, you're so pure. You're so, yeah.
I feel that,
Yeah.
but it's nice to sleep.
Yeah, it's
And
nice
do
to
nothing.
sleep. Oh, yeah, for sure.
When you had your babies, did you find out the gender or did you wait?
I found out the gender. I know, that's boring. Not very.
Flying or invisibility?
Oh, shit. I want to fly. I'm a bird. I'm hopanok, right? So, yeah.
That makes sense.
Flying.
It would have been weird if you
Yeah.
chose the other one.
Yeah.
Okay, final question. What is the most beautiful place you've ever visited?
Well, I guess I'm still daydreaming of hitting the road from San Francisco to further south, like Big Sur area, Monterey with the ocean. Something very exotic and very different view. So yeah, I've visited some beautiful places, but that sense of being on the road and having constantly that ocean that is, there's something, yeah, I think I want to relive that because it's not that it's so beautiful, it's the sense, it's the feeling, what it brings you, like when you're traveling in that area. I don't know, something really
I like that.
mystic, something really, mystical.
I can feel that.
Yeah.
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 All right, that's it.
Yay!
You did it.
We did it.
All right, thank you so much,
Thank
Elisapie,
you.
for being on the podcast.
Oh, thank you, Nakamik.
Basic Folk is produced by Laura McCarthy along with Adam Corey. Lindsay Myers is our business manager. Alex Stanton of Townspeople does Basic Folk's music. I'm your host, Cindy Howes. Very happy to have you listening. Please go to my website, cindyhowes.net. Check out those Basic Folk beanies and then subscribe at whatever platform you want to subscribe on, and then review and rate and share with all your friends. And we'll do it again next week. Thanks so much for listening. Talk to you later. Bye.